Even though this book is dated June, it came out 3 months earlier in March of 1964. I was 9 years old, and I was happy to see this in the spinner rack. I was buying Marvel comics almost exclusively by this time. As you can see, Stan Lee wrote the story, and Steve Ditko was the artist, and he was the first Spider-Man artist and one of the most unique artists and most innovative artists in comic history. He usually inked his own work, and it was a joy to look at every panel, even though his style was quirky. We see the cast of supporting characters, including J. Jonah Jameson, Betty Brant, and the high school friends of Peter Parker's, Liz Allen and Flash Thompson. And of course, Peter Parker is full of angst and neuroses, and someone has impersonated him and committed crimes, and he thinks it might be him. Look at the shadow effect on his eyes there. So he goes to a psychiatrist, which is probably the first time a superhero has ever done that in comics. But he decides against it. And his girlfriend, or lady interest, if you will, Betty Brant, he just dismisses her, as he sometimes does. He's just got so many issues, including money problems. And of course, Jameson, wants to just get work out of him and pay as little as possible. So Spidey goes out for the night, and he is attacked by, a mob. And here he is wondering how he's going to pay the mortgage. Meanwhile, Liz Allen acts like a standard issue female from the 60s, in typical Stan Lee writing of the time. And here comes Mysterio in a corny get-up, and yet it was partially used for one of the more recent Spider-Man movies. So this is nothing like a DC comic from 1964. Superman, Batman, and the Flash did not have these kinds of problems. They were never less than heroic and always fought for truth, justice, and the American way. Meanwhile, Spider-Man's just trying to survive. This scene from the comic played out in a Spider-Man cartoon in 1967.
Magnetized jet shoes. Wow.
Mysterio was offbeat, but he was not one of the major Spider-Man villains. Really a second-rate villain as compared to the Green Goblin or the Sandman or Dr. Octopus. Artists were paid very little. They had no royalties. It was a work-for-hire situation. So what they produced at this time was better than it had to be. Not only that, they became all-time classic comic book stories. I thought you'd like to see the ads in the comic as well. As you can see here, Flash Thompson, Peter Parker's rival, who thought he was a wimpy nerd, was actually a big fan of Spider-Man's, little realizing that Parker was Spider-Man. Stan Lee, to his credit, there would be no Marvel Comics without him. Even though possibly Ditko plotted this entire issue, Stan's dialogue was exceptional, especially in the 60s, and he wrote up to the readers rather than down. He respected the readers, and he essentially wrote for high school or college-age readers. For me, it helped me improve my vocabulary, as well as, of course, it gave me a big thrill reading these books in the 60s when, you know, there were 3 channels and no recording, no home computers. You know, it was reading, it was watching what little TV there was, and going out and playing. And drawing comics, which I did. Nobody knew at the time that this would be the stuff of billion-dollar grossing movies, and the comics themselves would become extremely valuable. You know, I read them several times, folded them, put them in my back pocket, sometimes tore out the pinups, and my comics were not treated well. I wish I had those same copies in the same condition in which I bought them. Now here are some other comics at the time. This will give you a better look. I bought, along with Spider-Man 13, I bought Avengers 5 and Fantastic Four 27, and I missed X-Men 5, but I found it a week later. You couldn't order these books from eBay. There were no comic shops. If you missed a comic, you might not see it for years. As it was, there was a lot of value here for a mere 12 cents, even though 12 cents was sometimes hard to come by for me. But it was obviously worth every penny. I felt that this was important stuff. I still do. And eventually, I was proven right. And in the letters pages, readers got to, instead of saying Dear Editor, they wrote Dear Stan and Steve, or Stan and Jack. Jack Kirby was the premier artist for the group. Stan gave it a casual feel. You felt like you knew the writers and artists, and the letters pages and the announcement sections had a exclusive club type feeling. Here, this is where you got to read about the other books on sale at the time. It was just a great time to be a kid. Thanks for watching.